Hello everyone. Microsoft has recently released session recording feature in Azure Bastion Service. So in this video, first I'll explain what is session recording feature and then show the step-by-step deployment of session recording in the lab. So let's start with what is Azure Bastion Service. It's a managed service which provides secure RDP and SSH connectivity to the virtual machines using the Azure portal. It's like a jump box, but in this case, the underlying infrastructure is managed by the Microsoft. And you don't have to create a virtual machine with the public IP addresses. So all the security measures are taken care by Microsoft. So through the Azure portal, you open the Azure Bastion session in the browser. And then you do the RDP or SSH based on what type of virtual machine you're running. So Azure Bastion Service has 4 different SKUs: Developer, Basic, Standard, and Premium. However, session recording feature is available only in the Premium SKU. So now let's discuss what is session recording in Azure Bastion. So it's a feature which provides the user session recording for the duration of the time when the user is using the Azure Bastion service. So every time a user logs into the virtual machine using the Azure Bastion service, a different session recording will be created for it. And I'll show that in the lab soon. But why do we need the session recording? And the main reason is auditing and compliance. For the financial institution or the different institution, if someone is making changes into the production server, then for auditing and compliance purpose, so these recordings are really important. In the case of Azure Bastion Service, all the recordings are saved in a separate storage account. And you can view those recordings through the Azure portal in Azure Bastion Service. Now, what are the prerequisites for session recording? So there are 4. First, when you create Azure Bastion Service, it should be part of your virtual network. Second one, it should have a premium SKU. There are 4 different SKUs for Azure Bastion, but it's available for only premium SKU. The virtual machine where the session recording should happen should be in the same or the peered virtual network. But this is not a prerequisite for session recording. This is kind of a prerequisite for Azure Bastion Service to use also. Because if the Azure Bastion Service are not in the peered network, in that case, you can't log into that virtual machine. And the last one is you have to create a storage account for the recordings. Now, if you'll enable the session recording, how much will it cost? So there is no specific cost for session recording feature. However, because you have to use the premium SKU, so there is a cost for that. As you can see, 0.689 per hour for using the Azure Bastion Premium, where by default you use 2 instances. And in case you're using more instances, then you have to pay extra for it. Then if you're copying data out of the Azure Bastion, then there is a separate charge for that, outbound data transfer cost. Now there is a separate cost for the storage because all these recordings will be saved in blob storage. And based on the data size, there is a cost for the storage account, and the read-write operations, there is a separate cost for operations and data transfer. Just to give you a context, I did a recording for 8 minutes and it was just using the 3 MB of data. And in case you're using for around 1000 minutes, then you will be just using around 400 MB of data, which I think is reasonable. So now the last is, what is the current limitation of using this recording session feature? First of all, you need to have a premium SKU, so it's not available for other SKUs. Second, it's not available through native clients, which means you can't use the RDP from the Windows or the PuTTY to log into the different servers. And for now, a single storage account or container per Bastion host. So that means you can only add 1 storage account. And in case you remove that storage account and add another one, then you can't see the previous recordings. So that's a limitation for now. But right now this recording feature is in preview. So I believe there will be some enhancement in this feature where you can use the multiple storage accounts. And the last one is no selective recording options. And based on the different user, you can't select which user you want the recording it for. So it will be done for all the users and for all the time. So now we have understood what is this recording feature in Azure Bastion Service. So let's check this in lab. I am now logged into Azure portal, and let's start with the creation of virtual machine where we'll do RDP. So this will be a Windows virtual machine which I'm going to create. Let's create a new resource group. RG Bastion test test VM01, sorry, test VM01 Australia East, and let Azure select the availability zone for me. I'll choose the Windows Server 2022. So standard B2S version 2 for this. Azure user and the password. Now I don't need the public inbound ports because we'll be using the Azure Bastion service. Select the disk by default. And in this case, let's select the existing virtual network and no public IP. Next. Next. I don't want boot diagnostic storage account, so disable it and review and create. I'll pause this video and we'll be back once this virtual machine is created. It took around a couple of minutes and now virtual machine is created. Let's go to virtual machine. It's a Windows Server 2022 and there is no public IP address because we have created a virtual machine without a public IP address. And we'll log into this virtual machine using the Bastion service. Right now we don't have any Bastion service deployed. So let's deploy the Bastion service. You can deploy it from here too, but let's look for Bastion service. Create new. I'll use the same resource group, Bastion test and test Bastion 01. Australia East is the region. And in this case, I'll select premium. There are 4 different SKUs, but we have to select premium for this. And in the case of the premium, the minimum instance count is 2. You can't go below 2. Now use the existing virtual network. And right now there is no subnet which can be selected for Azure Bastion service because a dedicated Azure Bastion service subnet should be created. Create a new subnet. And the subnet purpose is Azure Bastion. So automatically the name is selected Azure Bastion subnet. So this is the IPv4 range. So /26 is the minimum which you can select. So I'll go with that and add. Azure Bastion subnet is created now. Let's go back to where we were creating the Bastion service. And now it has automatically picked up the new subnet. So public IP address has to be configured because the users have to log in. It's creating a new IP. Let's just name it as Bastion IP. It's a standard SKU for the IP address. And in this case, in the advanced features, you need to select the preview feature, which is session recording. Next tags, review and create. So now I'll pause the video and we'll be back once the Bastion service is created. It took around 10 minutes and now the Azure Bastion service is created. Let's go to the resource and Azure Bastion host is ready. It's in the virtual network, VNet Australia East, and the subnet is the specific dedicated subnet, which is Azure Bastion subnet. Now if we'll go to the configuration, you can see the SKU is premium. And if you want to add more features, you can add it from here. So the session recording is selected here. So that means if you have already running the Bastion service, then you have to first convert it into premium SKU and then you can select it from there. It's not that for session recording, you have to create a new Bastion service. So if we'll click on session recordings, we have to provide a valid SaaS URL, which is from the storage account. So let's first create a new storage account. Storage. Create a new one. I'll use the same resource group, RG Bastion, st shelinder demo 01. I hope it's available. Yep. And instead of the GRS, I'll just select LRS. Next. I'll not change anything in the networking. And review and create. Now, once the storage account will be created, I'll create a blob container in it where the recordings will be saved. So let's wait for the storage account to be created. Storage account is created now. Let's go to the resource. And in the data storage, click on containers, add a new container, session recordings, and create. Now go to the session recording container, click on access policies, and first create a stored access policy. Session 01. And we need read, create, write, and list. And let's start it from today itself. And there is no expiration. However, I can select 1 day and then this stored policy will be expired. However, I'll delete all the resources after this video is done. Let's go to shared access token where we'll use this policy and create the access tokens. Signing key is key 1. Stored access policy is session 1, where it has selected all the different permissions. And let's set the expiration for a day and generate SaaS token. And we have to select SaaS URL. So let's copy this and go back to our Bastion service, test Bastion, go to the configuration, go to session recordings, add SaaS URL, copy and upload. It's just showing that SaaS URL will expire in 1 day. That means all the recordings after 1 day will not be visible here and no new recordings can be saved. So now let's go back to our virtual machine and create a new session. So go to the Bastion and provide the username and password. Connect. So now the user session has started and it should be recording also. Wait for a few seconds for the startup task to finish and then I'll quickly open the notepad and just write it. Hello, this is a test for recording. I believe that's enough. Let's close this, don't save, and close the session. Now let's go back to Azure Bastion service, session recordings, and you can see one recording there. And if you'll click on the view recording, it should show the recording, but now it's showing just 00, everything 0. So that means the Azure Bastion doesn't have access to view the recording from the storage account. So let me show you how to fix this. Let's go back to storage account. Storage account. And we have to go in settings and click on resource sharing. Now in the blob service, we have to provide access to the Bastion service so that it can view these recordings. So let's go to the Bastion service, copy the public DNS name, provide it here in the form of HTTPS, copy it, and it's just a get method we want. And the maximum age here is in the form of seconds. So let me just provide it 64,000 seconds and save. Now let's go back to our session recordings, refresh it. Should be after 51 seconds. Click on recording. And now it's showing the time. I don't know why it's showing 48 seconds, but let's play it. So this is how our user logged in. And then I opened the notepad and I started writing it. So my whole session is recorded now. So let's close this. One thing I want to show is that all the recordings can be viewed from here only, from the session recordings. And there is no option to add multiple storage account, as that is the limitation for now. It's in preview. In case you remove the storage account from here, then you cannot view the recordings, because if you'll go to the storage account and go to the container and the session recordings, and this file is not in the format which can be opened in any video player. So that's the reason this file can only be viewed through the Azure Bastion service. So that's all for this video. I hope you liked it. Please like and subscribe. Thank you so much.